Hey guys, it's your Peacekeeper coming at you with a premium ship review. This is the much requested Tier 6 Warspite, or the Grand Old Lady as she is more appropriately known as. The Warspite is a Queen Elizabeth class battleship that was launched November 26, 1913 and commissioned in 1915. She represented two new advances in battleship technology for the Royal Navy. The first was the use of 15-inch naval rifles, and the second was the use of fuel oil to power the ship. The design of the Queen Elizabeth-class battleships was intended to operate in a fast squadron to engage the leading ships of the enemy battle line, which she did do during both World War I and World War II. Warspite saw service in both World War I and World War II, and there's a number of really notable battles that she participated in. During World War I, she participated in the Battle of Jutland in 1916, where she took several hits, and by several hits, it's actually 150 hits. She took a lot of hits, and she would hit the German battlecruiser Von der Tann and Markgraf, and during that battle, she had received those 150 shell hits and unfortunately had 14 sailors killed and 16 wounded during the battle. Warspite would sail home for repairs and on the way home came under attack repeatedly by German U-boats. Thankfully, all of them missed. As an interesting aside to the Battle of Jutland, Walter Yeo, a warrant officer on board that was injured, became one of the first men in the world to receive a facial reconstruction surgery via plastic surgery. Interesting side note. The rest of her World War I story was spent in and out of dry docks due to collisions with other ships, fires causing damage, explosions from nearby ships that she was docked next to, and so she didn't see a whole lot of other action during World War I, but she did get used to escort the German High Seas Fleet into Scapa Flow after the armistice was signed at the end of World War I. Between World War I and World War II, she received a number of upgrades that improved her torpedo protection and overall gunnery protection by adding 1,100 tons of armor. During World War II, Warspite participated in a number of battles around the British Isles, the Indian Ocean, and the Mediterranean Sea, but her most famous battle would take place in the Mediterranean at the Battle of Calabria. During the Battle of Calabria, Warspite achieved the longest naval gunfire hit against another warship at 26,000 yards when she struck the Italian battleship Gio Cesare. This hit would be matched by Scharnhorst, who hit the HMS Glorious at basically the same distance that same month. Warspite was heavily damaged during a number of battles in World War II. At the Battle of Crete, she took a 500-pound bomb to her starboard 4-inch and 6-inch batteries. During the invasion of Sicily and Italy, Warspite was hit by a Fritz X-German guided missile and had a near miss with the second one. The one that actually hit her ripped a hole in her 20 feet from the top to the bottom. Quick damage control kept the ship afloat long enough to be towed in for repairs. Warspite was also present to bombard targets during the Normandy beach landings, and upon completion of that mission, returned home to have her guns replaced as they had been shot out during the shore bombardment. While transiting the Strait of Dover, Warspite struck a mine which disabled a propeller shaft. She would go on to be decommissioned and scrapped in 1946. In terms of her in-game gameplay style, Wargaming has given a number of nods to Warspite's history, in that she has a cruiser damage control party consumable, which has a 90-second cooldown instead of the 120 seconds of the other battleships. But the downside is that it's only active for 5 seconds instead of the 10 and 20 for the Japanese, German, and US, respectively. The other interesting nod to her durability history was that her repair party consumable repairs more damage than other nations does, and that Citadel and heavy damage can be repaired to a limited extent. And of course, owing to her achieving the longest range ship-to-ship hit in history, her accuracy is outstanding, and at the time of her addition to the game, she was the most accurate Tier 6 battleship by far, although since the addition of Arizona to the game, they kind of share the same spot. Their dispersion is within 2 meters, and their ranges are within 0.3 of a kilometer. In terms of her other play styles, Warspite, like Bayern and Mutsu, can overmatch the front bow armor of any other ship at Tier 6 due to the shell caliber and overmatch mechanics. That means if a ship is bow on to you, you can actually penetrate into the citadel through the nose of the ship. Warspite is decently quick, reasonably armored, and very maneuverable, but she is held back by her penchant for taking citadel hits while angled, as well as having some of the slowest traversing turrets of any battleship in the game. And to understand this, we really need to take a look at her armor profile. You can see here, she does use an incremental armor design with 25mm bow plate, but she's got these torpedo bulges up here, but if we take those away, you can see that there's this area here in which the Citadel has a deck thickness of only 1 inch, and the front bulkhead is only 102 millimeters. Now, this is buried down in the ship, so it's not terribly easy to get to, and there is some armor behind it, and let's see if I can pull it up. It's very difficult to actually get the armor. You can see here it's 152 millimeters or 6 inches basically over that part. But if you get the right hits, you can get a Citadel hit by hitting the armor plate right here, and it will come down into the Citadel spaces, which really hurts the ship because you just can't angle your armor well enough to mitigate damage. But if you do angle the ship well enough, you've got 330 millimeters of belt armor backed up by a turtleback armor scheme that is 5 inches thick at this armored deck. And so any shells that hit this midship section will tend to bounce. Of course, the other major downside is that she has this massive forehead, as ATSF or Euro likes to say, that is just asking to receive shell hits. And I tend to agree. When it comes to cruisers or destroyers shooting at you, she does tend to take a lot of damage from those ships because she has a lot of superstructure to hit that is relatively thinly armored. Overall, though, not a bad Tier 6 premium, especially if you're looking for a ship to train Royal Navy captains. You know, you only have 3 options right now between the Campbelltown, the Warspite, and the Belfast. But when you're looking for battleship captains, Warspite isn't a bad ship to use to do that. I don't play her all that much because I find the Arizona much more forgiving, but that doesn't mean Warspite isn't a bad ship. Let's dive on into her stats. She has 53,800 hit points, a boatload of armor, no pun intended. Her TDS, her torpedo damage reduction, is only 24%, which is really odd given how large the torpedo bulges are. Again, look at how large these torpedo bulges are in relative to the hull shape. I'm not sure 24% is really a fair number to give her, but that's what it's at. Her main battery consists of 8 15-inch guns. They are in 2 forward, 2 aft turrets, the ABXY turret configuration. Her secondary armament consists of 4 dual 4-inch guns, as well as 8 single 6-inch guns. Her main battery firing range is 16.3 kilometers, and her secondaries kick in at 5.5 kilometers. In terms of anti-aircraft defense, she has 13 20mm Oerlikons. She has 4 of the 40mm Vickers pom-pom guns. Let's zoom in and take a look at these things. These things are iconic. Just so many gun barrels there. And of course, those 4-inch guns that also work as her secondaries also pop in as her anti-aircraft suite. Her maximum speed in game is 23.5 knots with a 550 meter turning radius, which is really tight, tighter than the Arizona and New Mexico, which are also very maneuverable. And her rudder shift time is 11.3 seconds, which is very quick. She's also relatively stealthy at 13.8 kilometer detection range by sea and 11.4 kilometer detection range by air. That's without having concealment expert on the captain. If you're interested in seeing captain builds for this ship, this ship plays an awful lot like the U.S. battleships do, so you can check out the U.S. battleship builds. Just note that the AA build for the U.S. does not work nearly as well for Warspite. In terms of upgrades, I would recommend taking Main Armaments Mod 1 or the Auxiliary Armaments Mod 1. Main Armaments Mod 1 is going to decrease the chance of your main battery becoming incapacitated, as well as give you 50% more hit points and decrease the time it takes to repair them if they do get incapacitated by 20%. The Auxiliary Armaments Mod 1 increases your AA and secondary mount survivability by 100%. If you're going to take Auxiliary Armaments Mod 1, I highly recommend taking Preventative Maintenance on your captain as the Tier 1 skill. In her second upgrade slot, there are some options here up for debate. Personally, I see Aiming Systems Mod 1 to be the most valuable of these. This is going to reduce the dispersion by 7%, and it's going to help with your secondary batteries to a very limited extent. 5% reduction in the dispersion of your secondaries, as well as 5% increase to the range of your secondaries. Not a huge increase, but it is an increase nonetheless. The other option that I see people taking is Main Battery Mod 2, which is going to increase how quickly your turrets turn, but increases the time it takes to reload. So your turrets turn quicker, but it takes 5% longer to actually load your guns to shoot them. AA Guns Mod 2, not really super useful. The AA guns on the Warspite, they're better than Fuso, but they're not as good as New Mexico's. I would say that in terms of anti-aircraft ability, she's about like the Arizona. So an AA build really isn't all that useful. I guess if you're really cheeky and hate the carriers in the game, you can take AA Guns Mod 2. In terms of secondary builds, I've seen people run it. I just don't find this all that useful. If I remember correctly, that is HE. So she does shoot HE. I mean, I suppose if you really wanted to increase your secondary battery range by 20%, you can certainly do that. It's just not a huge change in how often do you really spend in secondary range, especially with the way the armor on the ship works out. I'm not sure that's really all that useful. In terms of the third slot, Damage Control Systems Mod 1 is really the only one that's useful. It reduces the risk of flooding and fire by 3 and 5% respectively, and it also increases your TDS value. Slightly, I might add. The other two mods, you just don't get your engines taken out and your steering gears taken out enough for it really to matter. This final slot, there's only one of these that I really consider viable pretty much ever. There is a case to be made on destroyers for Propulsions Mod 2, but for battleships, Steering Gears Mod 2, that's going to decrease your rudder shift time by 20%. That is such a huge reduction in rudder shift. It is almost a requirement for battleships so that you can just maneuver out of taking large shell hits, and it does allow you to play peekaboo with your rear turrets and engage ships with it. Anyway, enough of me blabbering on about the stats of the ship. Let's dive on into the battle video. Alright, so this battle is a Tier 8 fight. There are no carriers in this match, so I guess we can toss this out, right? No, we are playing in a division, however, with another Warspite and an Arizona, and it is Land of Fire for the map. Now, this map has always been kind of I do and I don't like this map. What I like about this map is there's enough cover in the middle of the map that you can make moves without just getting deleted right away because you're taking fire from every angle. What I don't like about this map is that this map generally tends to degrade into a long-range sniping fest in spite of the fact that you have plenty of cover which to push. A little contradictory, but I don't know what to tell you on that. That's just kind of the way this map works out. Now you'll see here just how slowly those turrets traverse, and this battle definitely has Expert Marksman on it. I do recommend taking Expert Marksman. It really is a requirement on the Warspite to get the most out of the ship. This battle is about 120,000 damage in total, 2 sinks. What I really wanted to show with this is just kind of the area in which you need to play with the ship. We get a little aggressive here, and I think it's because we're communicating, but the ship does not do well when it is being focused on. And that's, again, going back to that turtleback armor scheme. The ships that have it tend to get punished by taking lots of normal penetrating hits to the upper portions of the ship, and Warspite is really no different in that regard. In fact, one of the more frustrating aspects of playing this ship is just the fact that you seem to take large quantities of damage fairly regularly, even while angled. And that really is frustrating, but her gunnery more than makes up for it. Right off the bat here, there's a toggle that pops up, and we're going to toss up our spotting plane. And we're going to see if we can't poke a couple holes in him. And you'll get to see the dispersion on the main battery. Again, we're shooting at 17 kilometers, which for a battleship, you know, that's a pretty good chunk of change. Shots out. Okay, get our good look around here for good situational awareness. But look at the shot group as it comes down. That's pretty dang accurate for a battleship at 17 kilometers. Unfortunately, that dispersion circle wasn't tight enough to actually land any hits on the Otago, so we bracketed him, we straddled him, more accurately. In any other day, I think that would have been a couple of citadels, if not at least one citadel, maybe even a dev strike. But it didn't happen this time. Being as you do have 15-inch guns, there's really not much in this battle that can deflect your shells from the front. The Tirpitz and Bismarck definitely can, but when it comes to cruisers, none of them can. And so there's a lot of opportunity there to go ahead and play around with the bow of many ship. We're going to shoot at this Tirpitz first. And once again, look at that dispersion, 14K away. And, oh, really? That one shell penetrated the turret and took it out momentarily. Well, that's lame. I wanted to actually do some real damage here. Well, we did manage to get 5 hits, although 3 of them bounced and 1 of them broke, so didn't really get a whole lot out of it. That's not to say that maybe this next time around we won't get some good penetrating hits. So once again, the shells are out. And you'll notice that I'm trying to stick within that 10K range. Okay, 4,200 damage. I'm trying to stick to that 10K range or so to really get the most out of the ship. And in a lot of ways, it plays like the, you know, New Mexico or Arizona, but you don't have the armor, so you can't really sit there and tank rounds for your team nearly as effectively as those ships are. Now, we're playing really tight here. Murphy and I are playing Master Chief of the Navy, not Murphy. Master Chief of the Navy and I are playing really, really close together here. MM is a little bit further back in his Arizona. And being as we're so close to each other, you know, communication is absolutely necessary when it comes to engaging targets. And I'm trying to get these guys to open up and you know, give me some room here to maneuver so I can bring these guns to bear, because sometimes it's just flat easier to maneuver the ship to aim the guns than it is to aim the guns and wait for them to traverse. And that's something that I picked up playing US battleships. There's another 3K damage to the Arizona there. A couple of overpens and a normal pen. Again, it sucks that this game registers hits to modules as normal pens. And there's some shells bouncing. Torpedoes incoming from that Benson, but thankfully not much in the way that's going to get to me because of this handy-dandy island. And because there's a lot of support over here from various different ships, we're going to go ahead and we're going to keep pushing on in. We've got ourselves a fast battleship. We got 2 Warspites. We got an Arizona. We've got a bunch of cruisers. I mean, there's really nothing wrong here with continuing this engagement. And there we go. A couple more hits on that Arizona. But what's becoming a threat now is this Bismarck. And Master Chief of the Navy was yelling at me he wanted to take the lead on this, so we'll go ahead and we'll slow down and we'll let him take the lead. This will also give the opportunity for some of our other ships to get into this fight as well, so that we're not the ones tanking all the damage. Now this Bismarck is danger close. We are within his secondary range, and our secondaries are going off here. This captain at the time had advanced firing training on, so he had the additional range from that. And broadside Bismarck, don't threaten me with a good time. 23,000 damage in one salvo. Good night. And there you can see those shells are hitting pretty squarely. 15,000 damage, but almost all of it was easily repaired. And so the Hatsuharu laid us a nice smoke cloud. That was very nice of him. And remember what I said earlier about being able to overmatch the front bow armor on any Tier 6 battleship? You could definitely do that, but the Shores is presenting a much better target. And like a good battleship player, my goal is to punish as many broadside ships as possible. We do that with 13,700 damage to that poor Shores. And our guns are going crazy here. And I always I've been asked a couple times, what's your philosophy when it comes to engaging targets? What targets are your most important ones to engage? And I always tell people that by far the single most important thing to do is to take guns out of a fight. And if that means shooting at a broadside battleship, you shoot at a broadside battleship. If that means shooting at a broadside cruiser, that means shooting at a broadside cruiser like that and doing, 1,400 damage or 14,000 damage and killing him. And there you can see we were very well angled and we still took a huge chunk of damage while angled. And that's part of the problem with the Warspite's armor. Wargaming claims to have lowered the Warspite. It used to sit higher in the water, which made it even more susceptible to taking those long-range hits as citadels, and it really got quite old. But they seem to have reduced it so it's not nearly as frequently. Okay, shot out on this Atago. The shot looked good when I shot it. And 2,200, 2,300 hit points. Yeah. Okay, well, he's dead anyway, so again, now we're back down to what targets do I choose to engage. Now, they are, on the enemy team, in our cap, and there's 2 ships there. There's only one of ours there, and it is becoming very dangerous for us to leave it basically unattended. Now, I turn out here to try and draw the fire off of Master Chief to see if I can't get some fire to come towards me to take some hits while he gets out and repairs, and also wanted to engage that Arizona. Now, we both basically no longer detected, and our Bismarck is running back to our base. Okay, the New Orleans that was in our cap manages to kill the Myoko. There's another cruiser there, so we still need to get him help. Dodge a shot there coming. I believe that was the Fuso who fired that. And as you can see, we've managed to translate this into a pretty good game. And it looks like we are going to go ahead and traverse our turrets the other way. We are stealthed up. The ship does have reasonably good stealth. Of course, the only destroyer in this game is pushing for our cap, so he's not a huge threat at this point. They have an Arizona, another Arizona, and a Fuso. And then I don't remember what the other cruiser is. Doesn't really matter. He's not able to shoot at us. And the Kiev was the destroyer. Looking for targets here. Our guns are traversed over. Got an Arizona here presenting a profile. Again, remember that you can overmatch the bow armor of any of the Tier 6 battleships, including the Arizona, which means that if you can get a good hit on them that hits the front end, you can get penetrations into citadels through that bulkhead. Here we're fishing for some better targets. Well, the island's in the way. That kind of sucks. Okay, what about going back to this other Arizona? He fired. This was like a giant Tier 6 match with the occasional Tier 8 thrown in. So shot out. And... ooh, not too bad a dispersion. Not super amazing. 1,100 damage. Yikes. Alright, well, since we've been detected and we are basically exposing a broadside to one of these battleships, we're going to go ahead and we're going to turn in and we're going to split the difference between them. I'm hoping that this can mitigate some of the damage that we take through the front, and we're going to continue to engage the Arizona that is guns right to us, and that's going to provide us with the best opportunity to do damage. Now, he shoots at us. You can see there, not a whole lot of damage done to me, but we take about 5k off of him. And this nice smoke cloud here to our left, I'm going to try and take advantage of it. Now, there's 8k taken from the other Arizona, and since he is coming closer, we are going to engage him, especially since he is reloading. That other Arizona is also reloading. Now pay attention to this damage roll. 6k. So there was nothing from, ooh, ow, ouch. 17,000 damage, just poof, in normal pens. There was no Citadel hit there. The Arizona Citadel, the maximum AP damage is 10,500, and we did not see that damage number come up. So that means all of that was in normal penetrations. And that is a problem that Warspite has. So we are going to go ahead and engage, make sure we're clear of this island so that we can get some damage in. 2,000, another 2,000, and basically another 2,000. So 6,000 more damage in that hit, and you can see that repair is already going to town, and we're getting some pretty good repairs. Here's MM coming up to tank some damage for us. And we are back to engaging this Arizona that has guns right to us. And this match is basically over. It's just a matter of finishing off the last enemies. And we are no longer detected because the island there, some careful planning allowed us to shoot that completely from stealth. And 8,300 damage right there, bow on. And that's what I'm talking about with regards to the being able to overmatch the bow. When Warspite first came out, she was the only Tier 6 battleship that could do that. But since the addition of Bayern and Mutsu to the game, there are now 2 other Tier 6 battleships that can also do that. Okay, let's finish him off. Should be able to with this salvo, provided RNG blesses us, and it doesn't. Yep, 3,000 damage. 2 normal pens. Again, hitting a module for normal penetration damage and not incapacitating it is really annoying. And here you can see we are angled pretty well, but we still take a lot of damage. Another 13,000 hit points just kind of disappear into thin air. You can see we still have the ability to repair a lot of it, so it's not a huge disadvantage, especially since the last ship there, we did sink him, especially since the last ship is, well, if I remember correctly, he's nearly full health. But we're going to turn because he is right. Yep, he is nearly full health. He is 3.5k out. We're going to go ahead and target our secondaries on him. And we are going to pray that he... Oh, good. He fired. So his guns are already down on this fight. And he doesn't get the opportunity to engage me. He's presenting a reasonably good profile for me to engage him. 20,667 damage in 7 normal pens. That was 7 out of 8 shots for accuracy. And we are once again going to turn away from him while our heal comes up to heal all the damage that we've been taking. And Master Chief of the Navy screams for his deity of choice. That would be the Hawaiian snack bar. And... oh, we're going to get the... oh, he rammed him. Okay, so Master Chief of the Navy rammed him for the end of the game. And 119,385 damage, 2 kills. And here is the 1,701 base XP, the detailed report, and of course the credit screens. Anyway, I really do enjoy playing Warspite, but in terms of overall enjoyment, I get more out of Arizona. Warspite's not a bad ship if you're looking for, training up a Royal Navy captain, so don't hesitate to pick her up the next time she's in the premium shop. Anyway, I'm your Peacekeeper. Like, comment, subscribe, and thank you for watching.